Hi, this is Stuart Hemphill, and this is my final assignment for Linguistics 520 in the summer session. And I'm going to be presenting my top three ideas for ISLA. And since starting this course, my views on instructed SLA and SLA more generally have changed quite a bit. When we started, I didn't have much of an idea about any of the research behind SLA, aside from some of the historic methodologies that I've learned about previously. Now I feel that I have a good understanding of the basics of SLA and what a lot of the research suggests. In my view, the three most important variables for successful instructed SLA are comprehensible input, explicit and implicit knowledge, as well as individual variation. First, taking a look at comprehensible input. Comprehensible input is necessary for SLA. In Chapter 3 of the textbook, LIN states that no theory of ISLA proposes that an L2 can be learned without input. In the podcast episode from Module 4, Van Patten goes further and argues that input alone is sufficient for SLA. While I'm not convinced that Van Patten's view is correct, it does show that input is absolutely required, and that providing high-quality input is one of the primary focuses of L2 teachers. Explicit versus implicit knowledge is another important variable. This is an important consideration for what is actually happening in learners' brains. Explicit knowledge is metalinguistic and is something that we are aware that we know. It takes a long time to access, and so it is not very helpful in communication. On the other hand, while we are not aware of implicit knowledge, it is automatically accessed and is therefore very important for communication. Like most things in this field, there's considerable disagreement about the relative importance of these two. It also depends on what the learner's goals are. If they want to be able to communicate, such as in an office environment that only speaks the L2, then they will need implicit knowledge. If they want to pass a proficiency exam, then explicit knowledge will be useful. That would be a test similar to like TOEFL or IELTS or something like that. Lowen states that for adults, L2 classroom instruction might be better comprised of explicit instruction supplemented with implicit learning opportunities. Finally, I chose individual variation. There are many factors that affect how quickly learners acquire an L2. They include motivation, aptitude, working memory, learning styles, learning strategies, and others. These are important because we have varying levels of control over them. In the podcast episode from Module 3, Van Patten concludes that it is mostly out of our control, and it just has to be accepted. In Chapter 11, Lowen states that the teacher can exert some influence over learner motivation and also emotion. So moving on to the final part about what my L2 classroom would look like. My goal as a teacher is to provide as much high quality input as possible from a variety of sources. This means that I would not focus on any one aspect, such as reading or speaking, but would try to vary my lessons. Another facet would be that I need to be sure that input is comprehensible. And for that, I would use Krashen's I+1 concept, meaning that it would be a little bit challenging for the students, a little bit beyond what they currently know. And I would say that less than 10% of the words in a reading or listening wouldn't be new words. And so the majority of it would be words that they already know. And then also regarding explicit and implicit knowledge, I would use some explicit grammatical explanation, but would try to keep the lessons communicative. This would mean that there would be a task that would require communication. Also, it would be important to be some sort of meaningful communication. And this would take up a larger portion of class time than the explicit grammar teaching. Also, in this context, I am thinking about teaching adults. Finally, I would keep in mind that there will be variation among my students. Some of them will learn faster or slower, and it is largely something that is out of my hands. I do think that I can try to keep the lessons relevant and interesting in a way to help maintain their motivation. But when it comes to assessments, I plan to continue to try new types of assessments that take this into consideration. For me, this has been one of the big takeaways from the class, that a lot of our traditional assessment styles punish students who don't acquire the L2 as fastly as others. And I think it's not very helpful for them or even for the teacher to continue to use this style. Thank you for listening, and I learned quite a bit from this course. Thank you.